Republicans need to win 30 competitive seats to take the majority in the House and in the Senate. Republicans need a net gain of just one seat to clinch the majority from Democrats. Big question today, will Republicans see gains among Latino voters? Several key House races in Texas and a critical Senate race in Nevada right now hinging on Latino vote. Joining me now, CNN commentator Xochitl Hinojosa. She's a former senior advisor and communications director for the Democratic National Committee. Also with us is LaTosha Brown. She's the co-founder of the Black Voters Matter Fund. So, Xochitl, according to this Pew Research, Latinos this midterm are projected to account for, I think, 14.3% of all eligible voters, which is a new election high. And there's a piece in the Wall Street Journal, a poll in the Wall Street Journal, finding that the Republican Party is gaining support among Black and Latino voters. Why do you think we're seeing that trend?
Well, I think that Republicans woke up the day after that Trump lost the presidency, and they realized that if they were to try to make inroads with Black and Latino voters, that they would potentially be able to win the midterm elections and the presidential election in 2024. Well, I do give them credit because they have recruited Latino candidates all across this country. The reality is they're still really behind when it comes to Latino outreach. Estimates show that Democrats are spending about $40 million to reach Latino voters this cycle in both English and Spanish. And you have, on the other hand, Republicans are spending about $10 million. There is this race that you mentioned, Anderson, in South Texas, Mayra Flores, that flipped from blue to red in a special election. But we have to remember that was 7% turnout. So that wasn't because, Latinos were leaving the Democratic Party in droves. It's that they didn't turn out. So what I'm looking for tonight is, will Latinos turn out? And I think that they will. They will turn out for Democrats in a 2-1 margin.
LaTosha, how about you? Why do you think we're seeing Republicans and a trend among greater support among Black and Latino voters?
I mean, I agree with that analysis. I think right after the 2020 election and what we saw happen in 2020, 2021, there was a recognition that voters of color are the future of American politics. They're reshaping the political landscape. We also know that there are over 80 Black candidates that are running on the Republican ticket across the country. I think there's been a concerted effort to recruit Black candidates to run for office, just like we see in Georgia in the U.S. Senate race, to support an agenda that many feel is still a racist agenda, but actually put a face of color to that particular agenda. What we're seeing is run across the country. We're seeing that. I also think that there's a concerted effort by both parties to appeal to those voters, and we haven't seen that in recent years. I think it's interesting. I think the GOP has been going at it at an appeal of literally trying to tap into this discontent that may be in the African American community about wanting really to have more happen. And I think that what we're also seeing is we're seeing the Democrats really speak to, if the Democrats have power, we can actually do more. And so it's very interesting to see the distinctions and the appeals that I think to African American voters and BIPOC voters in this country.
So do you think Democratic candidates did enough this election cycle to try to appeal to voters of color on issues that matter most?
I think that they can always do more to appeal to voters of color. I think when it comes to the Latino community in particular, there is more that could have been done in order to mobilize and turn them out. I'm worried the way that the trends in Texas show that we haven't nearly invested enough to turn out our voters. But I do think in places like Nevada and Arizona, the hope is that Democrats invested enough in order to turn them out. But time will tell. I mean, Latino voters will decide elections in Nevada and Arizona. And if we don't win those states, I think the party needs to take a hard look at what the strategy was and how we need to invest more in order to turn Latinos out.
LaTosha, Axios is reporting that Republicans are, in their words, growing bullish that they'll make what Axios calls significant inroads with working class Hispanic voters. If that proves true, what do you think the lesson that Democrats should walk away with is?
I think that the Democrats should walk away with the lesson of literally that the work is done on the ground, that fundamentally this is not an air war. You can't take millions and millions of dollars and just throw them in television ads and that's going to get you a victory. That there are people that are feeling that they're not being touched, that their issues are not being addressed to. And I think that those are voters that actually would be in alignment with the Democratic agenda, the Democratic Party agenda, but you've got to reach them. And so I think that the lesson is, if you want the votes, you got to get the votes. And the way that you get the votes is you literally have to make sure that you're doing work, that we're seeing that this isn't just an air war, but this is also a ground war. And you got to put more investment on the ground to make sure that we're reaching those voters that are on the margins, those voters who have not seen themselves as part of the process.
LaTosha Brown and Soshi Hinojosa, thanks so much. Appreciate it. A handful of races could decide who controls the U.S. Senate. We'll look at what to watch next.